So we have the mud guards. We just remove all of the polystyrene. And now a very simple trick, because the bike can be quite heavy, it's an electric bike, so if you remove a lot of the packaging slightly further forward, so you have the wheel at the rear, if we slide, pick up the handle from here, slide the bike forward, and it's slightly easier to remove it just means you can then roll out the back wheel. That's more just to save your back. That will save you having to lift up the whole bike, which can be quite heavy. Remove all of the packaging. All we need to attach now is we have the pedals to attach, we have the wheel to attach, the handlebar, and we're off. So as we can see, we are roughly 90% assembled, but there are a few parts to put together here. So namely, the majority of the fixing will be just pulling off the extra tape that we have in places. And then we will have to assemble the wheel, the pedals, and there are a few other parts that are inside the box. The other parts that we have the battery, and now your battery will arrive with a set of 2 keys. And when you assemble the battery, the first thing we need to do is make sure the battery is unlocked, so there is a pin on the underneath. If we put the key in, let's twist to make sure that this pin is flat, and then we can mount it onto the bike. But before we do that, we need to ensure there's a line and a circle. So the line is on, the circle is off. I'll say that again. The line is on, the circle is off. We need to press the circle in, which means it's off, and then we can mount the battery when we're ready. But before we do that, it is very good and a very good idea to make sure you put your battery for a full cycle of charge, just to play it safe. Place the battery down there. Next we have a set of pedals. We have the charger. And lastly, we have the quick release spindle. And this is the sum of all of the parts. The last thing that we do have is the tools that you'll need, which is a few Allen keys, a few screws for the mud guards, and a small spacer and Allen wrench that we have there. So that's effectively the majority of what we have and need for the full build. So next step would be to remove all of the plastics and all the polystyrene that we have left. Again, it would be a good idea now that if you are assembling the bike, I would suggest the first thing you do would be to put the battery on charge. Again, it will need a full cycle. A full cycle can be anywhere from 6 to 8 hours if you're fully depleted. Your battery shouldn't be fully depleted, so it may only take 3 to 4 hours, in some cases 2 hours for a full charge. You will know when it's fully charged because the light will be red initially. When the light turns green, that's when you know you've gone for a full cycle. Okay, so now we've removed all of the waste, we can now begin building. So the first thing we're going to do is turn around the handlebars. So now you'll notice we have quite a few spacers, so you do have the choice. If you are working with a bike shop, you can raise or lower the spacer for the handlebars as in how you please. But the first step is to twist this around the right way, because at the moment it's facing backwards. Okay, we're going to twist, and there's a small little plastic piece on the very top we also need to turn, and it's really important at this part. So before you tighten up this, it's important that we get this fixed down, so you need to make sure it's tight down. So we'll put the Allen key in. We need to make sure this is straight. And then we can tighten up the Allen key on the top. Now, if you're at a bike shop and you have a bike shop assist you doing this, they can use a torque wrench to get the torque correct. But for information purposes, we're gonna do this finger tight just to show you how it's done. Again, we do advise using a bike shop as and where you can. But for the purpose of this video, this will just be finger tight. Right, so now that's fixed there. Next up, it will be, we will assemble the handlebars. So you will notice there are 4 screws in the top. If we unscrew all 4 to begin with, set them to one side. Okay, all 4 screws removed. Now we're going to put the handlebar on. And then we'll align pieces back in again. There's a very important part that we haven't mentioned yet, which is before you assemble your bike, if you're doing it yourself at home, it's really, really important to use thread lock. Thread locks just to make sure that your bolts stay tight, and it's imperative that you use thread lock for your disc brakes. So you need to make sure that that's one step you must do. If you're assembling at a bike shop, this is something that they would do anyway. But if you are doing this at home, you must use some form of thread lock to ensure your bolts stay tight over time. Otherwise, what you can find is under harsh braking or aggressive braking, you can find that your disc brakes do become loose, which can become a big health issue. So please do bear that in mind if you're building it yourself at home. Always be mindful of that. So the next step, we're going to add this spindle. To the front wheel. So you'll notice that you will have 2 springs within this. So there'll be 2 springs. So you remove the spring and you remove the end, and we'll pop it through, leaving 1 spring in. And again, we'll put that facing the same way. So the smaller end of the spring going on first. We'll then pop this, spin it on. Right, and then we're ready to mount. Ensure that the kickstand is down. There is a small metal piece in between the suspension on the front. Press your foot down, and then we're going to slide straight in. Now it's important at this point that you don't, if you can avoid tapping the front brake as you're mounting this. So now you've got your kickstand down so you're safe. So we can close it, we can make this finger tight to begin with for information purposes. Let's make this tight, keep it closed to begin with. Once it's tightened up, I want you to open it up and give it a full 2 rotations, and then let's close. So open it up, a full 2 rotations and close. You can make it tighter again, but this is just for the assembly purposes. And now moving on to the pedals, okay? So the pedals are pretty simple to mount. You'll have 2. And for these, we're going to, fairly simple. As you can see the pedals will rotate backwards, and that's how we're going to mount the pedals. So if you place them in, and if you spin with it, I find this is the easiest way to do it. So you will have to begin with just making it slightly finger tight, and then as you keep spinning, you keep a hand on there, that will make it tight, and then we're going to go back to the tool. Then you'll mount the tool, you'll keep it fixed where it is, and if you just press down, so if you hold the tool where it is on the crank and you press down, that will tighten it. There we go. And let's do the other side. Right, once you're happy and everything's all tight, if we can then check, if you can check the suspension joint to make sure that's tight, so we can use Allen key to tighten up that also. And then we can also just go for a once around on every bolt that we have on the bike, ensure that everything has thread lock. Because remember, these bikes are coming brand new, they're not coming assembled from a bike shop. If you take them to a bike shop, they will do the once over and give it a full MOT to make sure that everything is working as it should. If you're doing this alone, we cannot stress the importance of putting thread lock and then also using a form of lubricant on the chain and the moving parts. That does not mean putting the lubricant anywhere near the brake discs. They should not be anywhere near there, but we should have some form of lubricant, whether it's thread lock for the bolts or lubricant in between the ball joints and on the chain, etc. You can either use a wet lube or a dry lube, that's entirely of your choosing. Okay, so now your battery's charged, it's gone for a full cycle. The green light is now showing on the charger to show that it's completely full. So now it comes to mounting the battery. So the first step is to make sure that we press in on the 0. Remember, you have 2 lines. You have the line, which means on, and then you have the circle, which means off. You press off, you ensure that it's unlocked on the key. So that means the pin is in. We then place it on the bike. And you'll feel it slot down. As it slots down, we'll turn the key to make sure it's seated properly. And then you'll find you can remove the key and the battery is fixed. You will note these side lights do not illuminate, so you won't get anything from them. The next step is to switch it on, holding the M button. Awesome, so it's saying we have a full battery and we'd be ready to go. However, there is one final phase here. You do have the choice to mount your mudguard should you choose. The longer of the two, the larger of the two is for the rear, the smaller of the two is for the front. So we have a few bolts here. We have a set of 2 bolts. So the 2 smaller bolts that we have left, we will mount it inside here. You will see there are 2 screw holes. To mount it, all we have to do is screw them in, 1 on either side. The same on the other. For the front, you will have a nut and a bolt. You will repeat the same process up the front just here. And then you're off. Again, the mudguards are something by choice. You can mount, you can choose to assemble them, but it's not imperative. It's not something you have to do. And then let's now go for a few features on the bike itself. Okay, so the bike's now built. We've done all of our safety checks. Everything's ready to go. So let's talk about a few of the features on the bike. So battery's on. We've pressed the M button. We've now turned on the display. So holding in the M, we can see the display now. So on the toggle, you have down, M, and up. So if we press the up button, you can see there is the number 1. So that means there are 5 levels of assist. So we can go from 1 to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that means 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. So if you're taking on any steep hills, you're probably going to put that up to 5. If you're just tooting around town, you can be on 1, 2, or 3. Or even if you're feeling quite good and you want to ride without any assistance, you can go right the way down to 0 and have no assistance. We then have the display is currently in kilometers. That can be reset to mile an hour should you choose. And if we then press the M button, you can see we then go on to distance traveled on the current ride. It will then tell us the time. If you set the time, it will tell you the voltage of the battery itself, which should be in and around the 40 something mark if you're 40 plus mark if you're fully charged. And then we then have the error displays should you have any, which there should be. It should read E00. If we hold in the brake, you will see that there will be a warning sign come on. If that warning sign is on, it means that your brake is being pressed. So that's a warning just there to let you know. Okay, so moving on, underneath the display, we have a USB port. So if you choose to charge up any device, whether it's a light, a mobile phone, you have the option there to charge on the go, however you please. One of the other features we have is a horn. We have headlights. We have brake lights. We have indicators. And we have a running tail light. And we have 7 manual gears, as you would with any conventional bicycle. To go up, you press in on your thumb on the blue button. To go down, you press the top. So here we have the integrated lock. If you're just quickly running into a shop or parking it up somewhere, you pull it out, you pop it in, and then you reset the code. If you're buying this brand new, to reset the actual code for your own generated code, you will leave it on 0, or the zeros. You will slide this across. There's a small little latch. You will then set the code you want, and then we need to slide, once you've set your code, memorize it, slide it back across, and then that's your own personalized code. To undo it, you press this in, feed it back in. Right, and you're ready to ride. And there we have it, the VanderVolt Scrambler. We've just gone through what's in the box, how to build and how to assemble your VanderVolt Scrambler so you're ready to ride.